Okay, so I feel really silly for this video. Like, really, really silly. I thought we were all on the same page, guys. I really, really thought we were all on the same page. We saw what happened with music. We saw what happened with movies and TV. We saw how physical media transformed into this niche slash collector slash passion item, and how the mass consumption transferred into digital. And then the problem arrives at our doorstep a decade ago, right? And this is when we got the first real glimpses of it, when Xbox, okay, a mass consumer product, said, we're going to do this. And people resoundingly said, no, fuck you. And as Phil Spencer puts it, Xbox then lost the worst generation they could possibly lose because so many of those players, and I worked in a video game store at the time, I can speak volumes to the amount of people who would come in and buy PlayStation versus Xbox. Okay, slowly but surely PlayStation took over more and more and more of the store because people, the word spread, people lost faith in Xbox as a brand and they didn't want that. And after they lost that and people started building up their ecosystems on PlayStation, it was kind of game over. It's going to take an incredible amount of like money, willpower, creative direction, vision from Xbox to even get close to where they were about a decade ago. And then we also had PC at this point was always entirely digital, 99, 98%. And then we had this generation of consoles launch where every single console, well, Xbox and PlayStation, had digital-only consoles day one. You could buy digital-only PlayStation, or you could buy the Xbox Series S, or you could buy the physical version, or you could buy the Series X, which came with a disc drive. And yet people still didn't acknowledge it or notice it. They didn't pay that much attention to like the water slowly being turned up to a boil. And now we're here where Sony come out and say, rightfully so, and this is part of the problem I will get onto in a second, and it's not going where you think it is. They say, hey, listen, 80% of you motherfuckers are buying digital anyway, 20% of you buying physical, and then you look at the list, okay, this mythical leaked list that people want to talk about, where it's got games like Hogwarts Legacy, God of War, Spider-Man, etc., like big AAA games, and people, instead of gathering around a core idea of discs don't matter, physical doesn't matter, it's just plastic, fuck it, forget it, we need to focus on digital ownership rights and legality and what we can do with that. True, genuine ownership and trade. And people said, no. What's better is if we post pictures on Reddit about games we have gone out and bought that we could already buy and games we will be able to buy in 2 years. And while we do that, we will misinform people generally about what the statistics and what the data actually means. And I want to talk about that real quick. I don't have it in my notes or anything, but I do want to talk about it because whenever I try and record this, it's always at the back of my mind as a huge pet fucking peeve. You might have seen it by now. People showing this list from the Insomniac 2022, 2023 leaks, where it shows the games I just mentioned and a bunch of others, and it shows the physical and digital splits. Let's assume for a second that data is real. I don't remember the numbers. I did look at the leaks back in the day, but obviously I don't remember them because I'm not some savant. All of the games that are listed, and this is how I would rationalize and understand that data if I was at Sony, and coming from a product background, coming from a user experience career of a decade, a person that looks at data quite frequently and has to make data-informed decisions, I do feel quite comfortable making this call. Okay, so if you disagree with me, that's fine, but I promise you, I feel really, really assured making this call. When I look at those numbers, a 70-30 split, let's say, of physical versus digital, 70% of people go out and buy Hogwarts Legacy. Let's say the same for Red Dead 2. 70% of people go out and buy Red Dead 2. 60% go out and buy physical for Spider-Man. 55% go out and buy physical for God of War, right? Etc. What I see in that isn't that, oh my goodness, Sony's lying to us about the data. Oh my goodness, they just want to like be criminals and blah, 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 blah. Like, let me go and cancel my PlayStation subscription for no reason. What I see is the types of people that buy those games, okay? All of the games on that list, if you go and look at it, or maybe I'll post it here, I don't know. They are the types of games that mom and grandma and granddad and dad and like brothers and sisters and whatever else, casuals, they are the games that they go and buy. They're the 1, 2, 3 games that people buy a year while they're playing FIFA, while they're playing Madden, while they're playing 2K, while they're playing, Warzone and Fortnite, okay? They're the games that slot in the in-between that are really tentpole exclusive games, okay? Or at least really, really big third-party games like Red Dead 2 or Hogwarts Legacy. Most people, just imagine the type of person that's going out to buy Hogwarts Legacy, okay? I think it's the best example. Is that you and I mean, funnily enough, I do actually have a physical copy. Please don't assume that undermines my entire argument, okay? It's right here. Okay, don't be that person. A lot of the people going out and buying that are the person that plays a handful of games a year and they see, oh, that's that Harry Potter game. I know when I'm going to buy groceries or I'm going to do this thing or I'm doing blah, 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 I will go and pick it up. And they understand the user journey for that. They understand the process of purchasing. Okay, I go to the store, I buy this thing, I do this store for this thing, I have this store for this thing. Okay. I have dealt with these types of customers in the past when I worked in video game stores. And when things started to shift, I remember like Hitman 2016, before it came out on disc, there was a digital card. And what you would do, you would take that card, and it's very underwhelming as a user experience or a customer experience. You take that card to the counter and you say, this please, and they scan it and you pass them a receipt and it's got the code on it and you tell them don't lose the receipt because otherwise your shit's gone forever, and they keep that really, really safe. They go home, they download Hitman. Okay, now a lot of people in that scenario would always say, is that it? It's a totally valid like reason, totally valid to be like, really, I just gave you like £50 like, and you give me a fucking receipt with a code on it? This is kind of underwhelming. But with those types of people, all you have to explain is like, that's kind of just how it is now. They're not queuing up because they want the special edition of a thing. They're not paying £200 for a thing. They're not buying fucking Funko Pops. They're not buying like a £40 copy of a PS4 game that's like no longer in production, e.g. like Deadpool, right? They don't care. They just want the next big thing and they want to go out and get it and call it a day. It's just a small part of their day, okay? A release, a big marketing push, a big trailer like GTA's next trailer, it doesn't hit them. They don't see it. They don't care, okay? They will care when it comes out and they can buy it. And I guarantee you, for a large portion of people, they will go into the store with GTA, they will pick it up, they'll take it to the counter, the person will say, there's no disc, here you go. And they will be like, oh, that kind of sucks, but oh well, and leave. I promise you, this is the way it will go. So that's how I view a lot of like that data, like those data points. Like when I see those numbers, even if the numbers are correct, that's how I interpret them. And Sony is completely confident and comfortable in those people changing their behaviors, because the hardcore players, okay, players like you and I, people who buy like, you know, tens of 20, 30 games a year, we've already made the shift, okay? We've already made the shift. And for the other arguments around, you know, oh, well, it doesn't include, you know, some of the digital purchases, that 80-20 split, it only includes stuff that you can only get digital. Yeah, they have the data. They understand that, oh, wait a minute, like this actually doesn't matter. It's not like all of our digital only stuff is way, way, way down at the bottom, which is how it used to be with PlayStation 3 and really early PlayStation 4 stuff. So I do think this makes a difference, and people's ability to interpret that data and how you interpret it and understand it, I think makes a really, really big difference. The last big thing I want to talk about, because I don't want this video to be another 20-minute video like the other one, is this idea that Sony is creating a monopoly. And the reason they want to do this is because they're big and bad and evil and whatever else. A video I didn't make, and this will be a consistent thing, because I have so many ideas for videos that I just end up not making. I should really do like a catch-all video where it's just 50 minutes of me sprinting through certain topics. But one of the videos I wanted to make was around the news that Sony was ripping single-player exclusives away from PC. They'll keep the live service stuff, right, and the multiplayer-focused stuff, but single-player, you go to PlayStation to buy that. And people were up in arms. They were making the usual arguments. Oh, I'm not going to buy a console to play X game. I'm not going to buy a console to play this or Saros or Uncharted 5 or Last of Us 3 or Intergalactic, or a little bit biased there that I mentioned 3 Naughty Dog games. Okay, but God of War, like the Detroit Become Humans of the world, right? The studio really should do something else. Same with Media Molecule, right? You can see where I'm going with this. Slowly but surely, you might not give a shit that, you know, God, I can't believe this is here, but like Resistance, right? Such an underrated franchise. It really should come back. So totally valid to be like, I'm not buying £700 console for, and for international viewers, that's the currency we have in the UK. It's not actually that heavy. People don't want to, rightfully so, go out and buy a console for one game. Although people did do this for Spider-Man in their fucking droves, and that was also in the in the Insomniac leaks. But what we find is that over time, if you've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 like really strong exclusives, that kind of starts to make an argument for people, and they do say, oh, actually, you know what? I will buy it. I'm actually incentivized to buy this thing now. Like, it's actually a good investment for me. Part of the people to blame for this is, ironically or unironically, Steam. Steam getting into the hardware game to try and use its de facto monopoly is really like one of the signs that Sony read that was actually quite smart, and Xbox followed suit by walking back some of their exclusives just on PlayStation. They should really find a way to do it on PC as well, maybe, but I'm less convinced about that. Because at some point, if you're Sony, do you really want to spend 350 million or 450 million, whatever it was, on Spider-Man 2, only to like put all of the marketing and development budget from your own pocket and just say, hey, there you go, Steam. Thank you for the, we released 5 or 6 games and it made, 300 and something million, 400 million collectively for all of these big IPs that they put out there. Okay, so I realized while editing the video, I missed out on a core point in that entire discussion around Sony and Steam, etc. It really just boils down to this. If you are Sony, you're spending billions on your AAA tentpole titles, the ones back in the day where you would go to E3 and it'd have them on posters. They're basically, not now, but for the longest time, handing those things over to Steam for no gain, for nothing. These players aren't transferring, they're not signing up to like a PlayStation Network thing. You can see what PlayStation is trying to do here. Like one day they're going to have their own like PlayStation launcher on PC. That's like the route they will go down, okay? These players aren't necessarily even buying the games because PC players are like a different ecosystem. Some people, as I go on to talk about in a minute, they don't want to, buy the games because they're older. They don't want to buy the games because of the pricing. They don't want to buy the games because they're whatever. So there's really no value to Sony having these games on Steam. People just weren't that interested. Now, one of the arguments people make here is that, well, the games came out later. That shouldn't really matter, at least to me anyway, because the argument PC players make a lot of the time is that I have this huge backlog of games I can go and play at any time. So when a game released, I don't understand why that makes sense. It seems kind of hypocritical. But on the topic of Sony and creating this monopoly, people are really drilling down into this idea that you won't be able to buy PlayStation games anywhere else. So they're just going to be selling their games at $60, $70, $80 all the time. Firstly, legally, this can't happen. Basically, as of this week, this cannot happen because of Apple's court case in Europe, the Digital Markets Act, okay? They tried to rebuke this. They tried to push back on it. It didn't work, which now, I believe, enshrines in law the Digital Markets Act. Apple is worth like, I can't forget, it's like 4 trillion, 3 trillion, 4 trillion. Sony is not worth that, okay? AirPods alone are worth more than Sony. So Sony is not going to be in a position where they can just say, we're not going to do that. We're actually just going to have our own market. We're going to have our own thing and it's entirely ours. It's not going to work, okay? So they're going to have to find ways around this. Secondly, it would be so fucking stupid for them to do this because no company really acts like that, okay, at all. The best example of this is Steam. Steam is a de facto monopoly on PC. 95% of revenue for third-party games comes from Steam, okay? Now, Steam, I had this in my other video, people really don't like hearing this. Steam is a monopoly, okay? There's currently like 30,000 developers and publishers in the world suing Steam for its monopolistic practices, okay? Steam is not your savior, okay? Neither is Sony, neither is Xbox, like Microsoft, Apple, Google, like none of them, okay? Please stop glazing the shit out of them, okay? And for that one person that's like, oh, well, Sony have bad refund policies, which they kind of don't. Steam has great refund policies. They only did that because they were legally abided to. Illegally abided by? Illegally abided by, you know what I mean. Okay, so why would Sony not do this even if they could? Sony, just like Steam, is incentivized to keep you on platform, okay? And one of the best ways Steam did this over the years was locking you into its ecosystem, all right? You cannot take your Steam games and go somewhere else. You can take your GOG games, sure, but like, look at the library, it's kind of shitty. Your game, your experience, your friends, your achievements, everything, your PC experience is on Steam. Now, they have the sort of paradox argument of like, they have this like paradox of choice argument going on, which is, oh, like, of course we have competition, GOG and Epic and Itch and all this other stuff. Xbox is on there, right? But it's not really a choice. And PlayStation's going to play into this as well, and that argument will be Steam, okay? They are going to let you buy games for $10, $5, $3, $20. They're going to put sales on constantly because they know the second they do that, for every game you add to that account, it's harder to leave, okay? And the argument for, like, a lot of the time, people keep making this argument that you can, oh, but you can't sell your games, you can't trade them in. That's not how people really treat games. And I will say this from my experience of working in a game store, the one thing I would always hear was, really? I'm only getting X amount of pound for that? But I paid Y for it. I paid £50 for this game a few years ago, and I'm only getting £7 for it or £4 for it. Brick and mortar stores were massively incentivized to give you low amounts of money because that's where they made up huge margins. It's not to, if you're in the UK, you'll absolutely know this from experience. I'm not too sure about the US, but one of the things I really dislike on Reddit right now is seeing this like digital screenshot from Sony of a game that isn't on sale anymore, but it was last week. And then they'll show you like an Amazon thing, everyone's favorite actual monopoly. They won't notice the irony or what they're doing. It's just convenient for them to do. And they'll show how Amazon is selling that game for like $30, $40 cheaper, right? This happened in the UK with brick and mortar stores as well. Supermarkets, right, like you have in America, like Walmart and stuff, they would sell games at a loss because mommy and daddy would take little Jimmy into the store and they would go and do their shopping, okay? So they were incentivized to take the hit on the game because the markup of everything else was so much better. Video game stores like Game in the UK, if you bought like this game, right, like day one, sealed, whatever else, I think they made like a couple of pounds on it. Like I remember a manager telling me at some point it was like £2.50, I think. When it comes to ownership, this is another funny thing because yes, of course, like you don't own like what's on the disc and blah, 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 blah. But people big up the return policy of like physical games and what you can actually do with it. But it kind of sucks, okay? If you open this game and you go home with it, right? If you go home with it and open this game and play it for like an hour and it kind of blows, you couldn't return that game. You'd broken the seal, like tough shit. Like you can't do that anymore. So look, Sony is incentivized, really, really, really incentivized to give you incredible sales. They're incentivized to keep you on the subscription fee. They're incentivized to do all of these things because your attention, the attention economy, you on the platform, you as a daily active, monthly active, yearly active user, and that retention is worth so fucking much more to them than you paying $60 for an old game by accident, okay? They will quite happily swerve the cost. And by the way, again, to the initial point, they're going to have to open up competition. There's no way Apple doesn't get away with something and Sony by some miracle does. I'll end on this. Don't fight. I've wrote here, don't fight to save plastic, fight for the legal right to actually own the digital things you fucking own. I cannot stress this enough. If the banking app Wise can do this, right, and they don't get in legal trouble or border trouble or tax trouble or legislative trouble, and you can load money onto this app and you can send it to 100 and something countries in the world, okay, in banking, one of the most, if not the strictest areas to work in, holy fucking shit, we can figure it out with games, okay? Please, oh dear God, maybe even the blockchain comes back to haunt us, and it's a good way of solving this whole problem. I do want to work on it as a real project. I'll give it some thought, but there is no fucking shot that this is that complicated. It sounds ridiculous, I know, but the idea that, like, why can I not just have a SKU, right, like an ID to my game that I bought, and then I can choose to sell it back to Sony. I get 1/3 of the current sale value, and I can spend that on in-store credit, like you would do all the time, by the way. Okay, you would get cash or you would get in-store credit, and you would always get way fucking more in-store credit because they want you in their ecosystem buying their games and coming back on that cycle. Or I can send it to a friend. Maybe there's an open market like FIFA coins or some shit. Although I don't really know how that works. And then, or maybe you just, I don't know, put it out there to a friend for 1/3 of the value. You can sell it to a friend for 1/3 of the value, or you can sell it back to the store for 1/3 of the value. And all of it's handled with PSN credit or something. As for the other version of that, oh no, that's it. Ownership and trade, that's all that really matters. I don't give a fuck about borrowing my little friend down the street my game anymore. I don't care. It's 2026. So this has been a lot of yapping, been a lot of thoughts. I don't know if I'll make a video on this again. I'm bored of this topic already. I am really, really disappointed we were not prepared for this. And it seems like a lot of the argument to push back against it is even worse now than it was for Stop Killing Games. So that's unfortunate. I'll see you on the main channel. Peace.